Good morning, everyone. I'll try to kick it off so that I don't get booted off early, and I've got way too many slides to kind of go through. So first off, thank you for coming to the loft. Congratulations on navigating the stairs. I definitely got lost on the way here. So yeah, this talk is quite topical and it follows on from Surge quite well. So this talks about change that's happening and agency, what you can do about it, right? And like it or not, if you're in the hosting space, this stuff's coming at you fast. And if you're not in the hosting space, but you have a hosting bill, this is coming for you fast as well. So who am I? I'm Sean. I've been doing Drupal for a while. I have a blog where I talk about random stuff. If you want to read random stuff, there's a site where you can do that. And I work for Amazy.io, which is a hosting provider, and we host Drupal and other things. And hands up in the room if you've done any of this stuff recently. Hooray! Isn't that fun? Yeah, so this is the old playbook, and I say the old playbook because there is a bunch of change coming at you if you haven't already seen it. Who knows what a residential proxy network is? Hooray! Please do not install a free VPN. That means you are part of the network. So what this basically means, you can't block IPs anymore because they come from actual people's home. So you're not blocking data centers and stuff anymore. Now you're blocking like a random ISP in Baghdad. Headless browsers, they're everywhere. AI-driven scraping, yeah, woohoo. And mimicry, so these scrapers and stuff aren't saying for the most part that they're scraping you, they're actually trying to hide it. And they're pretty bloody good at it. And who's heard of this? HTTP Morph, or curl, CFFI. So why these tools are quite unique and scary is that they actually present the same JA4 TLS hash that actual Chrome does. So if you're blocking by TLS fingerprint, you no longer can do that. So now you've got requests coming from residential IPs using the same TLS hashes that real browsers will be using. And yeah, this is where we're at. And on this web page, by the way, if you just scroll down a little bit, there's actually a bloody ad for, hey, why don't you sign up for residential proxies? And then below that one, there's another ad. Hey, you want to bypass pesky Cloudflare capture? We've got another service. So that's right, you could actually buy cookies. You can always buy real cookies, but now you can buy digital cookies, and those digital cookies will get you through the bot management protection features of Akamai and Capsula and yada yada yada, and Cloudflare. So, and increasingly this is becoming a larger problem. So just some random stats have been pulled out. Imperva reckons more than half the internet is just bots talking to websites now. Pretty exciting. Pantheon just chucked out some stats as well, saying that they're seeing huge growth in their crawling, which is resulting in billions of requests for feeding the AI machines. Just some stats for our platform, and like even if you just consider user agents that are like flagging themselves as like bots, it's about 13%, which is pretty. It translates to a lot of requests. And then my new favorite user agent on my shit list is called Meta's External Agent. And if you've heard of that, my condolences for you. Yeah, it's training another LLM, which you didn't ask for, but you're now part of the Borg. All right, so what this talk is not, I'm not going to here to tell you to block everything, because that is, you can do that. It's not probably in your best interest though. You don't want to go off and just block like the whole countries or whole ASNs and stuff like that. You don't want to actually risk breaking actual real user flows. That might have impacts for, like, if you're a government department, like your users can't access your website, that's probably someone's going to be not very happy about that. So the goal really is just to reduce abuse, and you know, where it's making you like suffer effectively. I'll talk about a few things in this. There are some Drupal native solutions here. So anybody use Perimeter? It's kind of like blocking the really super obvious stuff that you're just going to get. Like as soon as you create a domain name and get a TLS certificate through Let's Encrypt, you end up on a Let's Encrypt transparency log, and then you get this kind of bouquet of requests sent to you. It's like 350, like, welcome to the internet, son. Do you have a .env file? Can I have your WP login.php, please? And anyway, it's to help with that. Not a serious mitigation, really. It's just to help. What about CrowdSec and abuse DBs? Anybody use these? So these are kind of more interesting. So CrowdSec and abuse IPDB are all about sharing IPs that are doing silly stuff amongst the network, so that you can then take that information and use it how you see fit. Facet bot blocker. This one is kind of interesting and kind of quite cool. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you do have a search page on your site and your search page has a facet, or even better, more than one facet, and even better, pagination, and even better, the combination of all three, you know. You end up with these bots that get stuck in these loops where they just click every permutation of facet and pagination, and it ends up being immeasurably large, the crawl space. They don't care though, they just keep going. So I checked it out, and it's just doing a rate limiting anyone with one or more facets in the URL. So in terms of a pretty good solution you can do in Drupal, it's, I rate that. And you can pluck the counter in Redis, so you can keep it off your database, and you know, how good's that? Form-side defenses, I won't go into these too much, but there are some capture type style stuff you can pluck onto your login form, and you know, so on. The main trade-off with these Drupal approaches is that you have to actually bootstrap Drupal, you know, and that's kind of a problem at scale. So how do we move this up the layer a little bit? Has anybody done this in Nginx or Apache? Oh yeah. So yeah, you can do rate limiting at your web server. You can do geo-blocking. So if you're seeing you know, requests from, I don't know, China, you're not very excited about that happening, then you can stop it. ModSec, you can do it. It's quite tricky to get perfect for Drupal, I'm not going to lie. And you end up blocking a lot of your content authors, and they'll tell you about it very quickly. That's the one I quite like a lot though. Like a bot that hits you, but it's a cache hit, doesn't matter. This is like a tree fall in the forest type situation. And I like to think it's free. So I don't mind how many times you hit the homepage. If that's a cache hit, God bless, you know.
Redis disagrees.
Yeah. And just random plug for my other website. If you haven't already seen it, go check it out. Caching Score, plug your domain into it and it'll give you a number. And then you can see how good you are or how crap you are. But yeah, I built this site specifically so people could assess how cacheable their current site is, so that if they were to be attacked by the army of bots, how likely would you be to survive? Yeah, so trade-off at blocking at the kind of web server layer. It's great at blocking volume, but not very good at distinguishing quality. And I have to talk about the paid solutions to this, and I see Fastly sponsoring the event as well. So Cloudflare is pretty good at bot stuff. It has some stuff in free tier. You just can't change anything in free tier, I believe. If you start moving up their paid plans, you can start to unlock additional functionality and rules, and so you can kind of tune it. But you do have to pay them money to do this. I have to mention Fastly and Akamai. They have also bot management features, and if anyone's been to Drupal.org recently, you've probably seen Fastly's bot management thing. It's a little red, little squiggly thing that's ever there. Yeah. There's also others, yeah. Yeah, this talk's not really about listing them and doing a feature matrix. Just know that they exist, and if you've already got access to it, then great. Yeah, the main issue is that if you can't afford one of those things, yeah, bot management is expensive, and typically doesn't come with the core WAF offering for those edge providers. So it's always like an add-on, and sometimes the cost grows with the traffic you have. And vendor lock-in. So the rules you create are specific to that vendor. So if you create a whole bunch of Cloudflare rules and then say you move off to Imperva, someone's got to do some juggling there. You still got to tune it. It doesn't absolve you of doing work. It still involves people opt. This one I think is worth talking about as well, but your rules, you typically will have a security team and a development team, and they end up being two different teams. The dev team are punching code, sending out new features, maybe sending out a new search page, for instance. Your security team doesn't know anything about it. And you know, that's a bit of a disconnect. And I quite like keeping everything in one code base for like actual GitOps, right? So when you deploy the thing, you deploy the change to help mitigate the bots. And false positives can be invisible to you, so you have to make sure that your sec team is actually on the ball and actually looking at who's getting blocked, why are they getting blocked, should they be blocked, should they be blocking more or less, how do you measure that? So I was also going to introduce one other thing, and who's heard of this term? But also the software. Yeah, okay. Anubis. I think it's something like Egyptian cat thing. So if you're Googling for it, it's going to be quite tricky. So Google for Anubis bot blocker, okay? Not Anubis without anything else. That's bad. It's open source. It's MIT, which is a very permissive license, very great. And it's a proof of work challenge. So I like to think of this like you're forcing the client to solve a bunch of Sudokus. That's the easiest way of thinking about it. And you can tune how many they solve, right? Like, do you want them to solve a reasonable amount or a lot? And it's really targeted at this whole AI scraping era. Why proof of work? The cost lands on the client. A real user pays a few hundred milliseconds, but only one time. So that little Drupal spinner, in the ideal world, you only see that like once a week. I know at the moment it's a bit more frequent. In my perfect world, that's a once a week thing. But if you're actually operating like a botnet through residential proxies, you're going to be hitting this computation millions of times. And that's actually going to start hurting you because CPU cycles and all the rest. Where to stick it? Search. So definitely if you've got any facets, any filters, any form of query parameters, pagination tails. There's a site I do work with that has this number. How do I know? Yeah. And they'll ask you again the next day, hey, what's on page 2348, bro? Has it changed? I need it. Login, register, or password reset, that's a really good place to stick it. If you've got any spicy forms, so when I say a spicy form, I mean like if you submit that form, it does something. like sends an email, sticks an item in your CRM, or otherwise causes humans to do something that ordinarily you would rather them do more important work than like weed out spam and shit. Anything in authentication that like you'd rather not have any any headless browsers be doing, you know. And just generally anything expensive and uncacheable, like as a rule of thumb. So then what about Googlebot? You know, everyone loves Googlebot. You can't. What's Googlebot going to do? There's actually a whole, like inside the repository, you can go have a look, but there's a whole bunch of carve-outs for known bots. And it actually includes IP and user agent matching. So it will actually go, it's Googlebot, and it's actually Googlebot, not it's someone masquerading as Googlebot trying to be, you know, silly. It's all maintained upstream, so you just have to make sure you do a deployment every so often, and then it'll pull in the latest changes. Now, if you want, you can stick that on your phone, and you can go look at my extremely simple Drupal site. It's actually going to the login page, and you will see, if you happen to have a browser that runs JavaScript, solving the Sudokus effectively, and it's also not on the home page. So I've just targeted the login page in this particular example. But hopefully you just saw it for a few 100 milliseconds and it's gone, and then if you just hit refresh, you don't see it again. So once you've loaded it once, you've got a cookie. That cookie is tied to your IP address. So if you move, jump off the Wi-Fi and go outside or something, you're going to get re-challenged. And it's good for 7 days out of the box. And because I'm just that type of person, I also change the assets. So this is the architecture of that simple site. There's Fastly plonked in front, mainly from make it slightly more real, the example, for CDN type stuff. But I also, out of the box, Anubis kind of looks like Japanese anime. I don't know if anyone's seen that. Didn't think that was highly professional, so at Fastly I rewrite the assets to be my assets. So it's branded. I think Anubis wants like a bit of money paid to them to facilitate this, and I'm not a fan of that in open source, so you can actually just hack around it. But the cool thing here is you can see Anubis blocks in front of your app. So it's sort of blocking it before it does a Drupal bootstrap. And if you like, you can also do a curl request to the website, and curl's not blocked. However, if you do a curl CFFI get, because it presents as Chrome, Chrome gets the challenge. So very sneaky. Wrap up. 5 things to take away. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. It's find out what layers you need to add on to your site, and maybe add a few. Yeah, match the protection to your threat. You know, if you're seeing people smash your forms and you've got no way of mitigating that, if you're sick of click on the pictures of the bus type thing and people can't do that, you don't need to. Measure. So do it before, do it after. Maybe roll it out slowly rather than big bang. You know, maybe protect one of your search pages and not the other, and compare the difference. Make sure you watch your accessibility and SEO. You know, take great care if you do have Googlebot and other bots you do care about, that they're not being inhibited. And you know, all we know at the moment is that things are going to change, like Serge said earlier. So just plan for these bots to get smarter and eventually to evade your defenses. And just right now you can do Claude code with a bridge to Chrome that uses the debug socket and will control your Chrome browser. So at the moment I don't have a solution for that. So That's a new and exciting threat for everybody. Yeah, you don't need to win the bot war, just make it harder than the next site. And that's probably the main thing. Thanks. All right, if there's any questions, now's your time.
Cool. Just got the microphone on for the recordings.
First of all, great talk. Thank you for that. Thank you for mentioning Anubis. I was actually going to ask you about it, so thanks for saving the time. So you've been mentioning a lot of defensive capabilities. I'm curious about your take on using offensive capabilities, things like IOCane, maybe OpenBSD's packet filter to increase the response time on abusive routes. So I'm kind of curious on your take on that.
Yeah, well, I didn't mention this talk, but if you do use Fastly, they've got a feature called Tarpit. And Tarpit, what it does is it slowly chunks the response back to them. So rather than like a WAF block being 2 milliseconds, boom, here you go, WAF block page. It's like holds the connection open and kind of drips feeds the bytes down the tube, takes like 10 or 11 seconds. It's super frustrating for the end user. They give up so quick. So you could chain these two things together. And because when you return a block page in Anubis, you can customize the status code, and then up the chain in Fastly, you can go listen for that. And if you see it, do the thing. If you really want to go crazy, you can also redirect them to zip bombs if you want. Not that I'm going to advocate for that, but it's a thing you can do. Yeah, you can redirect them to a 10 gig download file. That's also quite something you can do. Yeah, these are things I've just heard of, right?
No, you're totally responsible.
Yeah. And like for Meta, you can just redirect them to Facebook. You know, like it's. Yeah, so I think you can be a little bit creative with your what you want to do, but yeah, good question though.
Like next question. Yes,
I think that Anubis configuration, so you have that in front of your Nginx. Is that like a separate Docker container, or is it another? And so you've got to just separate up configuration.
Yeah, so it is in a separate Docker container how I've deployed it. Yeah, I happen to work for a hosting provider that allows you to deploy arbitrary Docker containers, so it's pretty cool. Shameless plug. But yeah. Yeah, but essentially I've attached the domain to the Anubis container, and then you set the proxy upstream to the internal Nginx endpoint, and there's actually no way to hit Nginx directly from the internet in this particular setup. But yeah, there's a Docker container out there, and I just lay it in a bot policy file. And it's just a YAML file. You don't need to learn the syntax, just go ask Claude, hey Claude, how do I do a thing? And then we're using AI to stop the AI. I think that's rather beautiful. So.
Have you got any good examples of passing from like the Drupal layer upstream more, like not blocking a locked-in user, for example, and that sort of thing?
What do you mean, sorry?
Well, if you're putting like Anubis or Nginx layer blocks or defenses in place,
yeah.
Have you seen any good Drupal contrib or any interesting solutions where you are passing information about connections from the Drupal layer further upstream?
Like authentication or something, or?
Like say you are blocking everyone hitting a search page, but you, for example, you're blocking all bots hitting your text quantity thing, but you don't want to block a logged-in user, or you've got you've got a very complicated web form, and you are using some complicated hacked together solution such that you can differentiate human traffic versus a bot hitting it at the Drupal layer but not at the network layer based on where they've come from.
Yeah, it's quite tricky, I think, to answer your question, because as soon as you go a layer above Drupal, you actually have no idea if they're logged in or not. You can have a stab at it. You can say, oh, that cookie looks like a session cookie. They could be authenticated. They could have also just made up a cookie. As we can see, you can buy those. I think you'd have to approximate it, I think, is the answer. Like, if you want to avoid shaping with Anubis authenticated sessions, you would need to take steps to do that. Like, one way could be to split off your editorial traffic to a separate editorial subdomain and then IP restrict it, and then they're not going to be shaped at all by that. That's quite a common approach. But the policies in Anubis will allow you to match on headers. So if you could say if there is a cookie that looks like a Drupal cookie, that's probably the best as you got.
Thanks, John. You said about, there's the Chrome headless browser that at some stage you would probably fix up. So I just exactly what I just.
Yeah. Well, if you've got Claude Code and in your Chrome browser you've got the Claude extension and you sign into both, that opens up a debug socket, and it's now Claude talking to Chrome and controlling Chrome, but doing everything your Chrome can do. So if your Chrome can get past it, so can the AIs.
What is it that you're currently detecting that is just purely the user agent? Okay, so.
Well, at the moment, Anubis can't stop that. No one can, because that's an actual browser. But for people just emulating Chrome, like those tools, those Python libraries I showed earlier, because they're presenting as Chrome, they will get the challenge page, which they don't complete, because they don't solve Sudokus effectively. It's just Python. And they will be forever stuck on the challenge page. And then effectively they can't crawl your stuff.
Because I meant to do what really do Sudoku.
Yeah.
Because it just flashed up and then it took me through.
Yeah. I've set the difficulty to be quite low. So maybe only solve a couple of Sudokus, but you can actually crack it right up. So if you're actually take a couple of seconds, think about it, you can do that too. But yeah, I quite like that approach to just flash up, and it's a little loading screen. Sometimes you can see, maybe you've got a super old phone, you see it chalk through. Yeah.
Don't have too much fun. It's easy to entertain.
Do you see this as a 1-year problem or a 3-year problem? I guess the lens I'm going through is there's a lot to think about now. Rolling out, defending. I think it's sensational. More about how bots interact with the site. Get that down. But do you see WAF providers starting to combat that?
Yes, it's becoming increasingly more table stakes for the high-end CDNs and WAF providers, definitely. What's going to happen in 3 years, I don't know, but all I know is there's more LLMs going to be created. Like that Meta one just probably sprung up maybe a couple of months ago, and now it's doing 250 million hits a month. What's next? I think if I was to make predictions about the future, there'd be more scraping, more thirst for knowledge, And yeah, like you need to have a tool to be able to deal with that, I guess, as a site owner. And yeah, if you've got more than like 100 nodes of content on your Drupal site, you probably need something, right? Yeah. If you've got more than 10,000, you definitely